Check, 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 check. Check, check, check. Check. Mic check. Mic check. Just write something if you can hear this. Write something and if you can hear this. Check, check, check. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Check, check, check. Mic check. Mic check. How's this? Hello, can you hear me? Check, check, mic check. Principal, can you hear me now? Alright, gotcha. Just muting for a second. Good morning, everyone. The stream is basically about technical analysis in general, as well as a few questions people had lined up earlier. It's a planned stream in the sense that I already know what to tell you. Um, it's not planned in the sense that there's an order of things, right? So if you have any questions, what I'll be doing is I'll be taking those questions, I'll be putting them down on paper. I'll answer questions that we already have first, and then we'll move forward from there, right? So this is also being recorded. After the stream is over, I'll upload the video to YouTube. I'll make a few cuts, obviously, so people watching later can just, have a highlight of things instead of starting over. So the first question we had was, let's see, it was about volatility. I'm just waiting for a few viewers to catch on. We have 9 so far. I'm looking about 25 because a lot of people put in questions. I don't want them to miss it. Alright, 11, that's good enough. Let's get started. So, volatility, right? The question's pretty general, and I'm going to quickly remove this to show you what I have. Going to change a few settings here. Right, that's much better. So, volatility is and these are not my words, these are Anton Krell's words. You might want to go look him up on Twitter. That's a guy who's been an institutional trader for a while, right? So, to him, volatility is the life and blood of a trader, and I happen to agree. If there's no volatility, you can't make money. Especially for us, momentum slash trend slash support resistance traders. See, if there's no underlying trend, right, things will get much harder. So let me just give you an example of what that means. And I'm not showing you a much different example. I'm just going back a little bit in time, going back to the hourly candles, and then zooming out a little. Let's see, how far can we go? Let's look at it here, right? So about right here is the beginning of the day, right? So in about, that's 21 days. Okay, let's change this a little. Right, so in about 2.5 days here, right, the price of Bitcoin went from what was about 9,500 down to about 5,900, right? That's a 38% decrease. And that was the end of the downturn. Volume was pretty high. This was effectively, back then it was some sort of capitulation. And the rebound was imminent, which was pretty heavy. And let's see how that changes. Right, so right here, you can see volumes lower than before, right? I'm talking about BitMEX. Volumes lower than before, even on the downtrend. In fact, in that accumulation range, volumes it's comparatively lower to right here, right? And 1 second. Afterwards, volatility got even lower. So the barting behavior you saw, like for example, this trade trending range you can see here, this small range, um, where price was lingering above for a little bit and then bounces and continuation. This is not part of momentum based trading, right? This is something more. It's older than momentum based trading. It comes from basics of support and resistance. So the breakdowns and the tests of support that people were used to, the reason they weren't getting that is because of behavior like this, right? Why here when resistance has already been tested once, it's been tested twice, why did we break and then continue lower, right? So this is a question I feel is better answered in a book. I'm just gonna quickly put the link of a few resources up. Let's see. Right, so right here, I've put a book on Advanced Wyckoff. Right, I recommend you go read that. There's also, I believe, a book called, let's see. Hmm. The Misbehavior of Markets is a good book to read, right? Specific to this kind of trading. So there's no one name for this kind of trading. Excuse me, 1 second. Momentum based. Sorry, yeah. Right. So there's no room for this. Like, there's no name for this kind of trading. There are multiple concepts. Somebody calls this the ICT way of trading. So Inner Circle Trader is one person. You can find him on YouTube. That kind of has a guide for these things. Again, it's not definite. It's not a science to him. But this is why I don't like essentially things that are not defined, which is why I just defined it in my own terms, and that's support resistance trading. You don't think beyond that. And accommodating those changes, right? So volatility is most likely the way it's going. So the thing, how it works is, if it's in a downtrend, it's going to stay in a downtrend, right? And this is how trend inertia works. It's going to stay in a downtrend. If it's in a downtrend, it's going to stay in an uptrend. If it's in an uptrend, and in this case, volatility is downtrending, right? That doesn't mean that we're approaching a price where Bitcoin's going to stay forever. I'd implore you to look into how volatility played a great role in defining specific moves up and down, right? So but at this stage in Bitcoin, volatility may continue to go lower, and the reason I think that is because of the daily chart. There's significant compression, and you can tell that by the B bands. I'll just load them up. Let's see. I have a better idea. 1 second. The ICT way of trading. So Inner Circle Trader is one person. You can find him on YouTube. That kind of has a guide for these things. Again, it's not definite. It's not a science to him. But this is why I don't like essentially things that are not defined, which is why I just defined it in my own terms, and that's support resistance trading. You don't think beyond that. So and right about here, accommodating those volatility is low because there's significant compression. Now go back a little and see if this has been the case for a while. The truth is, not since about right here it hasn't, right? Ignore the red and the green bands for now. Pay attention to the specific part, right? Where Bitcoin is lingering in a very tight range, and this can continue to happen. My advice is to stay out. Could be any way. If you're in Bitcoin already, then stay in Bitcoin. If you're not in Bitcoin, then probably refrain from buying right here. Maybe wait for a clearer move. Again, let me remind you, Bitcoin's an asset, right? So it's only gone down about where it is now is about 67% from the top. Anything is a buy after it retraces that much, right? A strong one at that. And the weekly chart to me is fairly compelling as accumulation. I feel there's a compelling case to be made, especially since we've not made a new low in such a long time. Now, locally speaking, right, I'll talk about that in a minute, but there's a pennant here that I'll talk about. Bharat Mata Ki Jai, it translates to because there's significant praise be to Mother India.
Go back a little and
right?
see if this has been the case for a while.
The Indians wanted. Sorry,
About
had to do it.
it hasn't. Right.
I'm echoing. Oh,
Ignore
1
the red
second.
and the green pans for
My
now.
apologies. How about now? Let's see. Mute is good. My bad. How long did that go on? Alright, cool. Sorry. Right. So I was saying. I was echoing. Nobody told me that. Yes, monsoon. I hope so. All right. The next question is about volume. How does volume affect price? I feel it's a give and take between the two. I'll point out instances of high volume, right? So, right here. So, this is one instance of high volume, right? You can see how this initially at least called the distribution. There was then a bearish divergence, right? And then volume was significantly high here as well. Then, right here, volume was pretty high again, right? And so was it here in this candle. But that's not relevant here. Then volume was pretty high right here at the top. So, in Wyckoff terms, this is termed as buying climax. So is this. This is termed as UTAD. You can read about it in the in this particular link. It's already posted on the Facebook page as well as in resources on 1x Capital Discord. One second. Too many questions coming in. As per, okay, we'll be hitting the 5500 range and then trend reversal. I think it is possible personally. That said, see, I believe that a downtrend is when there is a higher low, right? And then, sorry, there's a lower high followed by a lower low. Okay. And if that does not happen, like in this case, right, where is the lower low? There is no lower low to be made here, right? If it has not been made, by definition, then this was not a downtrend. It was neither an uptrend, obviously, but not a downtrend either. It was just simply compression, and that can happen. Do I think 5500 is support? I don't. In fact, I don't think that's the bottom. If we were to break down this from this range, ideally we should be testing 4900, about right here, right? Because that's within that's exact support right there, right? This unfortunately has been support before, and we do not know if it's going to be support again. I'd much rather long something that's resistance turned support, that's untested, versus support that's been tested too many times already, right? So if I was to make a guess, 5000 is about it. I do believe though that we've seen the low for the year. I do not think we'll be making a new low this year, personally, and that predictions held well for about a month now. I've still been making short and long plays, but overall it's been pretty sideways, right? Volume definitely affects things. It does not change things though. For example, let's take a look right here. Volume will appear, right, to push price, but it's not an indication of things to come unless it's very definitive, something like a tight range consolidation, right? And then the selling volume starts to drop off. That's a pretty good indication of accumulation, right? And vice versa, when buy volume starts to either completely disappear or drop off. So you can see that buying volume overall was pretty low and selling volume was pretty high, right, until this point. So technically this is the small piece of trend is downtrend. Volume is one of the things you can use. I recommend you stick to support resistance for now. The next question was higher highs and lower lows, higher lows, etc. Explain how these work and correlate. All right. First thing you need to understand is there are three types of trends, right? Or rather, there are two types of trends, and then there's a third definition. So there's an uptrend. Then there's a downtrend. then there's sideways. Alright, so the uptrends are very simple. They come from a higher high made from before, then a higher low is made, then another higher high is made above the previous resistance, right? And this continues. So it can continue, or it can continue to range here and then continue. So this part is this. There could be a pattern here that could be continuation, right? A downtrend is when something like this happens, where there's a lower low that's made from before, right? And then there's a lower high. Now support breaks on the next move and a lower low is made. Continuation, right? Sideways is when nothing happens. We stay in a range and nothing happens. So I'll just give you quick examples of how these work. Let's see. Let's pick a downtrend, and this is a pretty good example here. Let's pick an uptrend first. So right here is the example of an uptrend where you can see that this right here is a higher low compared to before, right? Then a higher high is made. Compared to this high, a higher high is made. So this is a higher low, then a higher high, then a higher low, higher high. Now this is indeterminate, right? You do not want sometimes to count this out. This is part of the volatility defining behavior of Bitcoin, where sometimes there can be a lower low, but then price can continue to move higher. In some ways, this was simply a retracement of the move before. So how you can measure this is just do this, and you can see that it was almost exactly on 705, right? This is a very common level to use. Now, okay, lower low, fine, but a higher high was made, and then a higher low is made, then a higher high is made. So you can see that there was a very clearly defined uptrend, right? Maybe not as clear because of this particular low, but it was clear enough. Then there was this downtrend right here, right, where there's a lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low, right? So there's a very clearly defined downtrend. So yeah, that's how higher highs and higher lows work on an uptrend, and lower highs and lower lows work in a downtrend. Now, in sideways behavior, what tends to happen is that things get unpredictable, in the sense that will support hold or it won't. In this case, support was violated by what seemed like almost 150 USD, but there was no daily close, right? Which is why I one second, where this go, right? Because this is where I had called a buy long term, and I think I still have the trade from that time. Not sure if it was here or here. No, it was definitely here. It was not here. Never mind. But from a hindsight perspective, obviously this would have been a decent trade to have. Sometimes what can happen is support can still be violated and then hold, and this is because most of these stop losses are below that support, right? In this case, for example, you can see that people that longed right here, right, got stopped out several times. So this was one instance. This was another instance where any trailing stops would have been taken out, and then this was where all stops were taken out, right? So what I typically look for is, I assume this is also a scenario that's going to happen. How I trade this is, naturally I would look for a retracement locally, something like this, right? And my entry would be in this range. This is something I do very regularly. Just check out my trading view. And then typically what I look for is, I put my stop loss at entry and I let it flow. If things are not looking good, like for example right here, again this would have been very difficult to catch. Let me reiterate, it would have been extremely difficult to catch, right? Not all moves are this slow. It just puts me to real time every time, so it's fine. So yeah, that's higher highs and low lows, right? The next thing we're discussing is trend lines, and trend lines are very simple. There's one clear example right here. Let's take this one, right? So this is a trend line where there were 2 touches and a third was a short entry. Then there's this trend line, right? So essentially trend lines are when there is a clear line as to the highs the price is making but downtrending. So that's a downtrend trend line, and then an uptrend trend line looks something like let's see, right here, something like this, where the third touch of support is usually your buy signal, right? It does work out but not always. So you can see that this became resistance and then suddenly it was an explosion upwards, right? So that definitely can happen to you, and then it became irrelevant later on. So again, Google these basic things instead. Typically that's faster explained. Explanation of TD9 basics, that's beyond the course of this discussion, but sure, alright. Let's go to the weekly TD sequential. Let's see, class. So let's take, I don't see a perfect 9. Okay, this is perfect enough, I guess. Yeah. So what happens is, first of all, TD sequential by Glass is the indicator on TradingView. Technically speaking, when after a 9, so for an uptrend 9, so if there's a green 1, 2, typically at the green 1, at the close of green 1 and the open of green 2, you would want to go long, right? So this is a trend following concept. You go long here and you close it at a 9. And then for a downtrend, you short a red 2 open and then you close it at the 9, right? So this strategy works decent. Again, your stop loss for everything would have to be the open of the 1, in which case your trade would look something like this, right here. Where'd it go? Okay, so the stop would be here. No, sorry. The entry would be here. The stop would be here, right? And your target would not be defined. I'm making this very clear. The target would not be defined in this case, not clearly. You would not know where to exit, right? Until this 9 appears. So at that point you would. Now let's assume you close it at the close of the 9, which is right here, right? So that's about a 4.45 trade. Not bad, especially since you got about, what is that? How big of a move is that? It's a 25% move up, right? Similarly, for a short, this is how it would work. Essentially your stop would be right here, right? And your target close would be this. So this is another 18% move down. This can keep happening. Now there's a concept of 13s that I will not explain. I think this is difficult enough as it is. So I assume if you've learned a little bit, just try to apply it on 4-hour time frames, and it should work fine. But obviously it's a trend-based indicator. So if there's no underlying trend, it's not going to help you. It can sometimes call reversals, and I think that's just the count of the 9 thing. It's not something that has to do with the indicator, right? My recommendation would be just to short the 2 after a red one, and then if there's a green one, short along the green after the green one, along the green 2, right? So that's just TD sequential basics. Bar logic is not something I'm going to explain here. How to reach Fibonacci levels? There's nothing to read, brother. It's just a very simple tool on TradingView. You can apply this anywhere, in any market, in fact, and it's very simple. The anchor, the first point, right, from where you do it. So this is your side panel on TradingView. Right here, there are multiple tools. You select the fib retracement tool. You pick right here. You pick the first spot and you pick the second spot. So the first spot has to be the top of the trend. The second spot has to be the bottom. So this is assuming that the price, say, is somewhere over here, right? So this has already happened. This is not hindsight. This has already happened, and you're assuming the next trade. So where is your trade in this case, right? Your trade is any move above the 618, This is called the optimal trade entry. Some people call this the golden pocket. I think I remember Nirmal saying it was a golden pocket, right? So a short here, and your target would be, let's see. So it did hit the 618, not much beyond. So let's assume that it did hit the 618. Your target would be to close somewhere at 5500, which is why I am assuming some people are calling that as a target. It's fair enough, I suppose, because it would hit target. But things you have to remember is that some of, at least most of the plays I make are safer than that. So my target actually was hit right here. 7100 was my target, right? It was a 1.3:1 trade. It was not the greatest, which is why it was very low leverage. I increased leverage on the way down. And locally, if I was to tell you how to look for moves, this was one other trade I did not take. You can notice what happened here was the OTE wasn't hit at all. And yeah, that's what happened. But another trade I did take was this one, where I called a long, right? And my entry zone was right here. My stop was at 5870, long right here, target upwards, right? So yes, that's how fibs work. You if you want, you can look up a YouTube tutorial on fibs, but this is basically how it works. That's about it, right? Next is strategies for scalp swing trading. Let's see, again, how do you define scalping? In this scenario, there is none. It would be probably on the minute chart that you'd look to scalp. I use my own indicator that I made almost entirely. So let's see. It wouldn't be great, especially when the trend is lacking, right? Targets are typically too far to hit. But on the hourly chart, things look a little better because there's at least some sort of trend that's going on. So there's a buy signal right here, right? So this is probably a good buy with a stop at like 6500. Long here, target is, where's the target? Right here, right? It's at 6600. So yeah, you can take this trade if you want to. There's a second target somewhere up here that I cannot see. Let's do this. Black. Second target's right here, 6674. So I use my own indicator. If you were to do scalping strategies, I would recommend just put up the MACD, try MACD based strategies for Forex. They work fine in crypto. Not great, but fine. That's interesting. There was a bearish divergence here. Sort of, not it's not exact, especially because of the cross. So if you want to look up scalping trading techniques, go ahead and either, obviously the indicator is pretty good. I'm not going to shill it on live stream though. I don't like to do that. If you want to ask me about the indicator, just hit me up. It's not free. It's also very costly, so it's up to you. But from what I hear, over 200 people have used it now, and it's, from what they say, it's worth the money. Now, if you were to look for scalp trades, typically now, and at this point you're looking for a swing trade, right? In my opinion, we are going to see a third bottom here, below this point. I feel we are going to test 6100 and then bounce very hard, and that would give an end to this downtrend permanently, right? This very clear consolidation system that's going on here, that would be put to a close. There was an ascending triangle people were drawing. I told them it was not valid. I was trying to tell them not to trade it at all, in fact. But you wouldn't have been able to trade it anyway, because after the second touch, the triangle kind of messed up, right? So this was the ascending triangle people were drawing. It's a bit of a question mark at this point. but there are no reversal ascending triangles. Those are continuation patterns, right? Next, will we see another alt season? When will alts see a new all-time high? Uh, I think it's a good idea to look at ETH BTC instead to answer that question. And I think this should answer your question. This should. This is on Bittrex, right? Obviously, on Poloniex history, it goes a little bit like it's a little easy to go back in history that way. Now, I think is the time to look seriously at what's going on. So, what I'm going to do is just draw a retracement for you. And why I'm doing this is because Ethereum is essentially um, it's like a short collar for the rest of the alts, or it used to be. From what I'm seeing now, that's not the case. I feel um, I feel alts are, they're rallying because people are buying them slowly, accumulating, and Ethereum is not reflecting this behavior at all. So you can see that volume has truly died down on Ethereum, especially since this high here a lot of people bought, nobody sold, right? And I think the pain point is about it's too far right now for me to seriously consider a buy. That said, 84.5 retracement, that's a logarithmic retracement. If you know what log numbers are, you'll recognize log 8. Is that log 8? No, that's log 7 then. Yep. So yeah, I think personally, at least this year, we will not see a melting rally. But as I speak, some of the alts that I know are rallying. Storm, okay, is rallying. There's severe accumulation, right? This is usually what you want to see. Keep regards to the volume, because this can still be top buying until this resistance breaks. There's BAT, I think that's a little bit of a rally earlier on. Yeah, a little bit, not too much. I did call the buy on it a long time ago. Apparently, I haven't seen this ever for a long time. I don't think my buy hit either. It was much lower. So the first resistance is right here, second is right here. This is a decent buy, but this also looks a little bit like a bear flag, so I'd be careful. I still want to avoid, like I said, I want to avoid altcoin entries, right? Looking at questions, check out long-term trend line on LogChart Pro. On Ethereum, on what coin? Okay. Pump and dump coin selected. Oh, okay. So that's let's pick the holy grail of pump and dump. That's BitConnect. Let's see. Did all of them get like delisted or something? Okay. Let's Google, right? Ruby coin, okay. Let's do this. Ruby. Really? You must think of me to be very stupid to be Googling this, and you'd be right. I have no idea of any pump of dump coin because obviously I don't trade any. God, where are you? I think you'd consider this a serious pump and dump, right? These, oh, this is definitely a pump and dump. Okay, so let me just get you up to speed on what happens, okay? So, before anyone is told, about one of those 2000 something coins is picked for its lack of liquidity. So, right here, how much is this? I mean, I can't see the Bitcoin valuation here for some reason. So this was a pretty good and obvious pump and dump, right? In the sense that a low was made after support, but essentially what you see is huge rallies that don't result in anything. So this was one example. Then right here is basically another where there's huge amount of volume. It's all sold off. So if you were to see a lower time frame, what you'd see is extremely heavy selling volume, not buying. On lower time frames, on even lower time frames, right? So one of these few coins. I think Enigma is in this list. Why? Engine is also there. I think this is just a random list. Maybe I might be wrong about this. But how pump and dumps work, or any pump and dump group works, on a very simple operator, that they will pick a coin that has extremely low liquidity and an extremely low price. It allows them to accumulate the coin for a long time, right? And what they will do is then once the price goes up a little, they will tell the coin to you, so you buy into the uptrend, right? I mean, when I say uptrend, I mean this casually. There may not be a clear uptrend, but essentially when the price is going up, and then they will dump their coins, and the price will suddenly crash, and you won't see any profit at all, right? So yeah, MACD and RSI settings for day traders. For day traders, when you say day traders, I mean, I'm assuming you mean intraday, and in that case, yeah, I mean for sure. You want to use the normal settings, the ones that are unchanged. RSI, I think the 14 settings, the one I remember, is pretty good because I don't use RSI. I use stock RSI because I've grown used to it. Oscillators all work the same. Keep this in mind. So in the sense that they lag behind usually about the same, right? MACD is one of the ones that doesn't lag that much. Stock RSI does lag a little bit, but I'm too used to it to give up on it, to be honest. It's about your preference. So yeah, the default settings work fine. I think it's 12, 26, close 9, right? Those are right here in the settings, input settings, right here, right? Just use those. Don't move around too much from that. Bearish and bullish divergences in RSI. Okay, let's do the RSI for that, and I'll give you hopefully an example of how divergences work. Let's close stock RSI. Go to daily chart. Low, high, low, low, low. Bullish, nope. Bullish, nope. Bullish, nope. Okay. One, two. Bearish. Right here, right? Just pay a little bit of attention. Do you see this? A little mild divergence here. The RSI low at this point to this point, right? So this point it's 31 about, and at this point it's slightly higher at 31.6, right? A higher low was made on the RSI and a lower low was made on the price itself, right? So there's a quick reference cheat sheet that I give to everybody. I'm going to put it in the live stream link. 1 second. So this is for divergences. Right? This link basically has link to all divergences. So the one I think I'm referring to is... Yep, I'm referring to a regular bullish divergence. I don't remember all of those, and I don't intend to, because it's much rather information I have in front of me than information I want to see all the time, right? Or remember all the time. Just looking for the example of a bearish divergence. Can't find one. It's easy to find divergences on stock RSI for me for some reason. I think this counts. Yeah, this definitely does. There was a weekly divergence on RSI, yes. So, right about, if you can see it, right about here. No, I don't remember. It was just on the stock RSI most likely. So, what I use for divergences is the stock RSI. Right. There was a very clear bearish divergence on the stock RSI right here. I called a short, in fact. Yep, this is what kind? It is a hidden bearish divergence, These can also appear on any time frame. So one I was looking for very carefully was right here somewhere, hopefully, and I found a hidden bullish divergence right here. Right, so these are examples of divergences. Look those up; those can appear on all oscillators, not just this one. Next is time frames. If one time frame is showing it will go up, but the other is showing it will go down. See, what I look for is confluence, in the sense that what happens when all time frames are indicating there's a potential top. This was one example, right, where on the weekly chart also this was a local top, as you can see it. The next candle it crossed, right, but I was eagerly waiting for this to cross, which is why I had a short open. This level about. So what you want to look for is confluence between time frames, not when one time frame says up and the other says down. Now it obviously depends. It obviously depends, because if you're on the daily chart, for example, and you see there's a clear bullish divergence here, do you take the trade or not? And usually people take this long, right? But intraday things might look different. For example, it's showing a little bit of a bottom here, right? So things can be very different from time frame to time frame. It depends on your style of trading. My recommendation is either stick to being a proper daily candle trader, or then go to the lower time frames, or vice versa. It's your picking. Again, it does not mean that you'll make more or less money, right? That's not a factor. There's more to making money than the time frame. Cool, so that's about it. I'm going to quickly discuss Bitcoin, Ethereum, Komodo, and Encash, right? If you want any special requests, you can make those. I'm completely fine by that, right? Special requests are cool, but after I discuss those. So I'm just quickly discussing Bitcoin. Alright, first of all, we're going to draw some resistances and supports, right? If you want to play along, just open a chart and do this with me. So this is a resistance. This was supposed to be support, broke down, now it's resistance, right? And the support here is an optimal trade entry from this region right here, right? It is about the never mind, T4. Yeah, this was a log entry, right? You can see the respect of the different log levels, and then it was retested. I was unfortunately not available for this long, but I was for this. We were discussing basic questions. Now we're discussing Bitcoin. Alright, so this is the bottom of the range, this is the top of the range. How do you make a play after this has been made? Typically you just wait for a retracement to come to you. Let the market, slowly make its way to you. It does not mean that you will just buy the top in the hope for a profit, right? So in this case 705 was somewhat retested. I think it missed by a little bit, but the optimal trade entry was still filled. At this point, what you should be looking for is a breakout. Breakout of what, you ask? Good question. I am looking for a breakout of this on the daily time frame, in fact, not on this time frame. Should look second 20, let's see, candles. Yep, I'm looking for a breakout of that. That's a clear pennant. It's about halfway through, I think, not sure. Date, it's about 25, 1 month long, and we're about 10 days, so another 11 days, so another 4 days until I sound the alarm and say this is going sideways more, right? But my best guess is about 15 days till Bitcoin makes a decent move either up or down, and you can know for sure, right? That's it for Bitcoin. I think I don't have anything more to say beyond the fact that, see, if you're being bearish, Uh, as a trader, both intraday and interday, I want you to remember that there is no low yet, right? There is obviously the chance of something like this happening, where this is a descending triangle, this is a slightly ascending triangle, um, this slightly ascending support on a descending triangle. This can happen sometimes. Typically, this does break down. So in this case, you'll be looking at a target of about 4,500 to 3,000, right? This, I believe, is not going to happen. What's going to happen is a retest of either the 8,200 or the 7,300 top, after which I think I cannot make a prediction, right? Because I don't have enough information to go on. I can make a very badass prediction about price going to 50,000 or price going to 3,000, but I know neither of those are true right now. I don't believe that I can make a prediction going by information I don't have. I leave that to people who have millions to trade with, right? Let's stick to the basics here. This is what I like to see. So any buy, I believe, below this point is a good buy for the rest of the year. I will remind you that long term, quarter 4 starts on October, ends in January, right? Has historically been bullish. This will echo the sentiment of one person I idolize. His name is Moku. He's a good trader, a good analyst, also a bulltard like me, unfortunately. That means that, to be honest, I'm a little biased towards Bitcoin, but that doesn't mean I'll be a bad trader about it, right? So, good quarter, then again, slightly upwards quarter, October, slightly upwards quarter, October, slightly upwards quarter. Everyone knows what happened this October, right? It's went straight up. Now, tell me something. If it's happened 4 times already, is it likely it's going to happen a 5th time? You know what? Just tell me in the chat. Yes or no? If it's happened before, is it going to happen again? Yes or no? Right? Do you think it's going to happen again? So I think it's not, right? That something unpredictable is going to happen. So there's my long-term prediction on Bitcoin. Ethereum, I wanted to talk about this not from a what do you call it, fundamental standpoint, but more about a trading standpoint. Now, pay attention to this. Ethereum's been trending more, or rather making bigger moves than Bitcoin. And why you should be interested is because it means as a trader you have more room to trade. It gives you better profits on BitMEX. This means things are more predictable than they're supposed to be. Funding supports you. There's a lot of things that are going on, right? So yeah, I mean, if from a trader's point of view, if there's an impulse, much rather trade at Ethereum now than Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is going to stay that way. As much as I like Bitcoin, I may not want to get into trading Bitcoin, get into trading Ethereum USD on BitMEX. Low leverage, of course, as usual, right? Ethereum doesn't affect future price. I think it does long term. Let's pick Poloniex. Okay, sorry, 1 second. Ethereum, Bitcoin. Okay, no, I think USD is fine. This is calculated off the trading value on Bittrex, right? So, and I mean, don't hate my sentiment here, but I think the truest support for Ethereum is either this. I think 107 is about the most likely bottom I can come up with, right? Anything lower than that, 21, 22 should be expected. That's very far. Yes, that's a bad prediction to make, especially given that locally this is a pretty good retrace to buy. Let's see. No, in fact, it's a bad retrace to buy. Forget what I said. Yes, it's gonna affect price if prices crash below about the low maiden 25th right here, right? If it crashes below this point, you can expect to retest of at least 99. Komodo short to medium term. What I see is illiquidity. Don't know what happened here. But this time it's different. It's not different, not. It's really not different. But okay, I'm talking about Komodo here. There's no localized support nearby. I would recommend not buying above this level, right? This range is where you want to buy below 1570. So we're about, I think, 20% overpriced from that point on. It's not a good idea to buy before that. So it's no about 10%, right? You want to wait for a 10% more fall to buy Komodo. That's about it. The next coin we're discussing is Encash. Okay, so Encash had a, I think it just bounced off its 0.618. Yep, right there. So the OT is already missed. Typically, if you want to enter now, you should look at this range. I think the volume's kind of dead catty, so you want to buy somewhere right here or below, right? And I think that's a very good entry. In fact, it's not made a new low since August, so long term, this might be a good idea for Nucleus Vision. That said, I've not heard good things about the coin, fundamentally speaking. Some sort of scam thing going on. Again, this is just a rumor. I have no clue as to what's going on. But from a standpoint of technical analysis, I think 75, sub 75 is a good entry. 75 sats. Aeon. Stay away for now. Partly because it failed to rally after it already touched support a few times. Anybody that bought at the 618 is either out or screwed. But this looks like accumulation, especially because of the volume. I need the oscillators back. Let's look at this a little close. This is the 4-hour candle, so like this goes like 2 months ago. It's not exactly a fast coin, is it? I'd look to buy in this area. Man, this used to be overvalued. Also made a target at some point. My best guess is right here is a good buy. Small bags, maybe $100. Your target would be pretty high. I mean, if you're taking the trade, might as well, you know. So your stop should be at 556. Your target is 1272. Right. You think we'll see a big change in 48 hours? I don't think we're moving in for the next 24. For the 48, I think Monday morning for us in India, Monday morning should see a pretty big explosion on either side, which again I'm not willing to trade because I wait for impulses. I'm a safe trader that way. I don't like to take a big risk when I can avoid it. Fractals always play nothing. Changes. Fractals always play nothing. I don't know what that means, man. Okay. Aeon is done. Coins for rally this time, I have no idea. I don't trade coins like that, right? I trade coins that I already know well. So Sia coin is one thing I already sold. Unfortunately, it went to like 110 is where my last exit was. It's not much higher than that, but it ended up going so much, like about another 10-12%, right? Yeah. Well, you know what? At least I sold on an uptrend. That felt good. Alright. I'm gonna quickly go back to Bitcoin. Last thoughts before I close the live stream. If you have any questions, now's the time to ask. I'm about to switch things off. I think I should discuss the failure targets, right? So in this case, for example, if this does work out, you're looking at a 10% move upwards from here. Right, somewhere around this range is a breakout target upwards, and somewhere around right here is the target for a downtrend target. $700 move downwards. That's not a bad trade if you ask me. 10%. Might just trade this short somewhere here, but again the 4-hour is too unbalanced for me to take this trade as of right now. I want to. There's a clear bear div there, but it's already correcting and there's no clear volume here. Again, descending volume, somewhat an uptrend, dangerous. I want to wait for an impulse before I short it. So yeah, to Indian large caps, I'd like to show you Nifty 50. So yeah, anybody from abroad, if you're watching this, it's about to get Indian in here. Oh boy, what happened? It just holy shit. It looks bad. It looks bad, if you ask me. Boys, I think we may need to short Nifty on the retrace, depending on what happens. That looks dangerous for the economy in general. You're buying 98. 90 is pretty low. It's a good buy zone right here, right? Previous resistance, I think 98 was right here. This range. You're right. There's plenty liquidity right here in this range. Things look bad, if you ask me. Because I'll go to the monthly chart and look at that. But like the weekly will reset, hopefully above this previous cross. So people from abroad, what we're looking for here is an entry on Nifty. I'm looking for an entry based on the hedge fund, because you know, this shit can be dangerous. It's bad. It's usually followed by a bad month, and this one's just started, you know, so I'm not expecting a big issue. Like I think green is a pretty good idea, but long term, if you ask me, that's a very bad bearish divergence right there. So I think it'll take its own time to play out. I think you're talking about banks. I want to talk about ONGC. I think the fuel prices. Oops. I think the fuel price is gonna go up, which is why I'm looking for an entry on ONGC. Right. I think. If you're looking at Yes Bank, might as well look at ICICI as a re-entry. Long term, that might be a good buy. ICICI personally, I'm a little bit of a fan.
Bajaj Finserv, Bajaj Finance. You're looking for a long entry, buy entry. Right here seems to be most logical. Right here seems to be safe, long term, unless the company crashes or something, you know. Weekly is already reset. Monthly is, I think there's a little bit of a bearish divergence, not too much, but I think I wanted the monthly to reset once. Oh, I shorted Nifty. I shorted at 11. I didn't short it. I have had a put of 11,200. So that's about right here. I've been holding that put for a long time. I lost a lot of money on my like on one option. That was a call option for 11,350. That was to hedge out my 11,200 put option, and that messed me up. But this has made me a significant amount of money, so I might end up closing at some point. I am thinking personally to close above this support. You know, just 1,000 one time it tests 10,000, I'm out. Right, 10,100 is about the point for Nifty. Casual reminder that, again, you know, that would have been fun to buy, because in hindsight that looks such a good trade. You know, there's a clear bullish divergence here, then there was a bullish divergence here, also good buy. At this point it's kind of messed up, but you know what, I've already entered the Indian market, so yeah, we'll see what happens. At this point I'm more interested in the hourly trades. Significant amount of pressure here, but I think at this point we should probably see a bounce, because if we don't, then it's gonna panic sell right down to 9,000 area, right, another 1,000 points or so. Cool guys, I think this is about it. I am going to close the stream. Thank you for joining me tonight, and morning for all the people in EST in these states. Thank you for helping me out with the stream. I appreciate you watching. If you have any questions, just drop me a text anywhere. TradingView, Instagram, Snapchat, I don't know, Discord. I'm not on Snapchat, just kidding, because it's going down. Alright boys, thank you for joining me. I'm gonna close the stream now. Alright.